Under the shadow of Nazi-occupied France, whispers spread of a mysterious woman who defied every expectation. The Gestapo named her the most dangerous of all Allied spies, yet she walked with a wooden leg she called Cuthbert. What made this woman so feared was not her appearance, but her ability to weave invisible webs of resistance, to slip through the cracks of a hostile world, and to turn what others saw as a weakness into her deadliest weapon. Virginia Hall was born in Baltimore, Maryland, into a world that offered women few opportunities to shape the course of history. She dreamed of serving her country as a diplomat, but the State Department dismissed her ambitions, seeing her gender as a barrier rather than a strength. Then fate struck even harder. A hunting accident cost her a leg, leaving her to rely on a wooden prosthetic. To many, that would have ended a life of service. For Virginia, it was only the beginning. When Europe fell into the chaos of war, she refused to remain a bystander. Crossing the Atlantic, she offered her skills to Britain's Special Operations Executive, a clandestine organization designed to wage war in the shadows. In a world where spies often relied on stealth and deception, Virginia added something more: unshakable determination. The loss of her leg became a silent reminder of her resilience, a daily test of endurance that steeled her for the dangers ahead. With a cover story as a journalist, she prepared to step into Nazi-occupied France, where her life would become a relentless game of survival against the most feared secret police in the world. When Virginia first set foot in Vichy France in 1941, she entered a country suffocated by fear. German checkpoints dotted the streets, collaborators whispered into the ears of the Gestapo, and suspicion hung in the air like smoke. Beneath the surface, however, ordinary citizens longed for a chance to strike back, and Virginia offered them that chance. Operating under the guise of a reporter, she began weaving together an underground web of resistance. She recruited couriers, trained sabotage teams, and arranged safe houses, transforming scattered pockets of defiance into a coordinated network. Her ingenuity was matched only by her courage. She helped organize daring escapes, smuggling Allied airmen out of France before they could be captured. She secured weapons and funds, ensuring resistance fighters were armed not only with spirit, but with rifles and explosives. Every coded radio message she sent carried the weight of lives. For a single slip could bring the Gestapo crashing down upon her. Yet her network thrived, expanding under her direction until she became a constant thorn in the occupier's side. The Gestapo took notice. They circulated posters of the Limping Lady, describing her as the most dangerous Allied agent in France. Her wooden leg, once thought to be a handicap, became an identifying mark, forcing her to disguise herself constantly. In safe houses lit by dim lamps, whispers spread that the Germans feared her more than entire battalions. The pressure on Virginia escalated with every success. The Gestapo intensified their pursuit, raiding hideouts, torturing captured resistors, and closing in on her network. Informants lurked in cafes, and each friendly face might conceal betrayal. Yet Virginia refused to retreat. She adopted disguises, shifting from elegant journalist to plain village woman, altering her gait and voice to slip past German patrols. Every move became a gamble, but her instincts rarely failed her. Her greatest test came when the net around her tightened in 1942. With Gestapo chief Klaus Barbie determined to crush her operations, she had no choice but to escape through the unforgiving Pyrenees mountains. Snow bit at her skin, and each step drove the wooden leg deeper into the icy ground. Still, she pressed on, accompanied by guides who marveled at her endurance. Along the way, she radioed London. Riley noting that Cuthbert was giving her trouble. The reply crackled back with unintended dark humor. If Cuthbert is giving you difficulty, have him eliminated. Through pain and exhaustion, Virginia laughed at the absurdity, a brief moment of levity in a harrowing flight. Crossing into Spain, battered but unbroken, she proved that even nature's obstacles could not halt her resolve. The woman the Gestapo had labeled their most dangerous enemy had slipped from their grasp once again. carrying with her the knowledge and will to continue the fight from new ground. Spain was only a pause, not an end. Once recovered in England, Virginia refused to fade into the safety of exile. She pressed to return to France, but this time the stakes were even higher. The Allies were preparing for the great invasion of Western Europe, and success depended on crippling German supply lines. The Office of Strategic Services, America's fledgling intelligence agency, entrusted her with the mission. Unlike before, Virginia would not enter France as a cosmopolitan journalist. She chose instead the disguise of an aging peasant woman, stooped and weathered, her once elegant features hidden beneath scarves and worn clothes. In 1944, she slipped back across the Channel. On the ground, she worked tirelessly to rebuild resistance cells devastated by earlier Gestapo sweeps. Her cover was so convincing that German soldiers overlooked her entirely, never suspecting that the frail woman carrying a basket of milk jugs was transmitting vital intelligence on their positions. Night after night, she tapped out coded messages to London, guiding supply drops, pinpointing targets, and preparing rural France for the chaos that would erupt on D-Day. She inspired loyalty among those she led. Young fighters, barely more than boys, called her La Dame qui boite, the Limping Lady, but with reverence rather than scorn. To them, she was proof that weakness could be turned into strength, and that even the most ordinary-seeming figure could hold the fate of armies in her hands. As D-Day drew closer, Virginia's role shifted from rebuilding networks to unleashing them. She coordinated with the Maquis, local resistance fighters scattered across the French countryside. Under her direction, they sabotaged train lines, dynamited bridges, and ambushed German convoys. Each act of disruption rippled outward, delaying troop movements and spreading panic among occupying forces. What seemed like isolated strikes were in fact part of a larger strategy, stitched together by the woman who had returned to France in disguise. Her operations required nerves of steel. Messages had to be sent swiftly, equipment distributed under constant threat of capture, and missions launched with only scraps of information. Yet her discipline and quiet authority kept her groups effective. German reinforcements trying to reach the Normandy beaches found their trains derailed and their supplies burned. Virginia's network crippled communication lines so thoroughly that German commanders often fought blind, unable to predict where the next Allied move would fall. Even as her influence grew, she remained in the shadows. No medals, no public speeches, just the relentless rhythm of coded taps on a wireless set, and the whispered coordination of resistance bands. By the time Allied troops stormed ashore on June 6, 1944, much of the groundwork for their advance had been laid by invisible hands like hers. The Gestapo still searched, but the frail peasant woman in the market was no longer merely evading capture. She was shaping the outcome of the war itself. With the liberation of France underway, the full impact of Virginia's work became clear. The resistance cells she nurtured had grown into formidable forces, tying down German divisions that might otherwise have reinforced Normandy. Her coordination of sabotage operations had crippled railways and highways, leaving enemy troops stranded and supply depots gutted. Allied commanders acknowledged that these actions shortened the battle for France, saving countless lives. For many in the Maquis, she was not just a leader, but a symbol. Proof that courage could bloom even in the darkest soil. Recognition, however, was slow to come. The secrecy of intelligence work meant her name remained unknown outside a small circle. Those who had fought beside her remembered the quiet strength in her voice, the calm resolve that steadied them before missions that seemed suicidal. Her wooden leg, once mocked as a weakness, had become part of her legend. Whispers spread of the woman who crossed mountains with Cuthbert, who outwitted Klaus Barbie, who defied an empire armed only with radios and nerve. As the war turned decisively in favor of the Allies, she slipped back into the shadows, content to let others take the spotlight. Yet within the clandestine community, her reputation was unmatched. Colleagues in the OSS and SOE spoke of her with reverence, acknowledging that few had risked as much and fewer still had accomplished so much with so little. When the guns finally fell silent, Virginia Hall stood among the unsung architects of victory. In 1945, she became the only American civilian woman awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, one of the nation's highest honors for valor. The ceremony was private, attended by a handful of officials, for her identity as a master spy was still guarded closely. She accepted the medal with characteristic modesty, knowing that the truest recognition came from the lives she had saved and the freedom she had helped restore. Her achievements crossed borders. Britain honoured her with the Order of the British Empire, and France bestowed the Croix de Guerre for her extraordinary service on its soil. Yet despite the weight of these honours, Virginia preferred anonymity. She declined the public adulation that might have accompanied her feats, choosing instead to continue her work quietly. After the war, she joined the newly created CIA, hoping to shape the next chapter of American intelligence. Inside the agency, however, she faced new battles: skepticism from male colleagues, assignments that often underestimated her experience, and the lingering shadow of prejudice against women in positions of command. Still, she endured, much as she had endured the long marches across hostile mountains. To those who knew her story, she remained an unshakable figure. The woman who, with a wooden leg and indomitable will, had altered the course of the greatest conflict of the 20th century. History often forgets those who worked in silence, and Virginia Hall was no exception. After the war, she faded into obscurity, her name absent from textbooks and headlines, her accomplishments overshadowed by generals and politicians. Yet for those who served under her, the memory never dimmed. They spoke of a woman who carried herself with quiet authority, who never demanded loyalty, yet inspired it effortlessly. In their stories, she was not only a strategist or a saboteur, but a friend who gave them courage when fear threatened to overwhelm. Her life offers a powerful reminder that true strength is not measured in physical perfection or social status, but in resilience. She was told she could not be a diplomat because she was a woman. She was told her prosthetic leg marked the end of any real service. Time and again, she proved the world wrong. In doing so, she shattered assumptions about gender, disability, and the limits of human will. Today, her legacy lives less in medals than in inspiration. She represents the countless individuals who risked everything without expectation of glory. Her story urges us to see beyond appearances and to recognize that history is often shaped by those who work unseen. Virginia Hall walked with a limp, but she moved through war like a giant, leaving footprints that continue to echo across generations.